got a little bit of blonde. Sorry. Got myself shaving. Maybe it's just bad luck. Okay, welcome to Generation Movie, a quick review. I wanted to get in before this weekend started and give a chance for people who are thinking about going. Well, I saw The Exorcist Believer last night, and I'm going to start off by saying the original is a very good movie. It's not my favorite horror film of all time, but the original is great, not just because of the shocking things that happen, but the original is great because there's this tension, there's an overall visceral kind of, it's got a great envelope of visceral kind of dread and a sense of dread and a sense of horror. One of the things that comes across in the new one is that, unfortunately, what we're starting to learn with David Gordon Green and what we're learning when we're doing these remakes of great movies is that not necessarily. I can't believe I have a bloody thing. We're just gonna have to leave it. It's spooky season. We're gonna have to go with it. Not everything is meant to be remade or rebooted or rebootquels or whatever the hell you want to call them. And sometimes the originals are so hard to actually get right that what you end up is like you end up with like something that's trying really hard at trying to encompass everything and also trying to be original and also trying to be up to date with how religion plays in our society right now. And that's one of the things that The Believer has going for it that actually works, is that it's not just necessarily the Catholic Church that is interested. There are other churches and other forms of religion that view the problems that with Satan and the problems with demons, and so it becomes like this kind of mishmash. Now, the opening hour is, and I'm not going to do a lot of spoilers. I'm just going to say it's really hard to live up to The Exorcist. It's really hard to live up to the original Halloween, and what they're doing at Blumhouse is they're buying these major franchises and they're spending a lot of money on them. They spent $400 million to be able to get the Exorcist franchise over to Blumhouse, and they spent a lot of money bringing Ellen Burstyn back, and she is in many ways the best thing about the movie. Like her arc, her character, everything about her screams gravitas when she's on screen. And it's really good. Now, Leslie Odom has an interesting role to play. He's from Hamilton. He's a good actor. And there are a bunch of other actors like Norbert Butz that's in it that you recognize. Jennifer Nettles. Like there are a bunch of really good actors and actors in it. It's really hard to live up to the nightmare and the dread of the original Exorcist. And it's really hard to make a sequel in this day and age that's one, original, and two, basically hits all the boxes. And I do give them a lot of credit for trying to, bring other religions in. And the idea, maybe not one religion is right, but maybe we can have a bunch of religions and it becomes like, the church Avengers kind of thing where they're all together trying to do whatever. The little girls are really good. I mean, they're not nuanced performances. They're, they get to be as over the top as possible. In many cases, they're dubbed just like Linda Blair was back in the day. Lydia Jewett plays Angela, who is Leslie Odom's daughter. The other actress who plays Catherine is Olivia O'Neill. They do as best they can with everything they have. Ann Dowd has a really interesting character. She's a nurse who's also the Leslie Odom's neighbor, and she has an interesting arc and an interesting characterization to play. We have so many exorcism movies and so many things out there where they're trying to basically live in the hype and the feel of The Exorcist and the dread, the existential dread of just going into that room. And the performances in the original movie are really good. Ellen Burstyn's really good, and Max von Sydow is really good, and Jason Miller from my hometown of Scranton is really, really good. So when you make a remake or do a remake of a movie and you're trying to like bring it up to date and bring it together and make it more for 2023, I think paying $400 million by Blumhouse is a mistake. I think Blumhouse in general is in a weird place right now. They're one of the more successful horror producers in our world right now. And what I would say to them is I want them to start getting back to finding original filmmakers and finding people and doing original things. This idea of buying a franchise, laying waste to any of the sequels, because that's another thing they do here. As with Halloween, the only movie that matters is Exorcist, the original Exorcist. Everything that came after Exorcist 2, The Heretic, and Exorcist 3 with George C. Scott doesn't matter. So not only are they making these movies and trying to make a ton of money and doing whatever, they're consistently kind of buying up as opposed to coming up with something new. And we're now in this place where that's where we're at with streamers and with movies coming out. The IPs in this particular case, the IP is so strong that somebody paid $400 million for the rights to 3 movies that we don't even know if they're going to get to make them if this one doesn't do that well. It grossed about $3 million last night in screenings. I was at a screening that was virtually empty, and the movie just doesn't. There's no dread. It plays more in the first hour like a great movie called Prisoners. Plays very much like a movie called Prisoners. And then everything kind of, just the bottom drops out. And the only moments I was really enjoying was Ellen Burstyn. She was, because there's a gravitas to her when she's talking about what's happened in the, in her past. That's engaging, and Ellen Burstyn is an engaging, amazing elderly actress that we should thank heaven shows up at all in this movie. I feel like Leslie Odom is kind of neglected a little bit. He's given the role of, skeptic that has to find a way to save his daughter, kind of thing. And as things pile up, there are just too many inconsistencies. The level of dread doesn't exceed expectations. What you need for an Exorcist movie, what you're expecting from an Exorcist movie doesn't ratchet up. I would even say it doesn't even ratchet up to the recent exorcism movies we've had, like the Pope's Exorcist, or like it's not even close to those. And then the inconsistencies with trying to figure out the explanations on things are kind of just like left to the audience. I walked out with my friends just going, well, how do you explain that? Not to the audience, to the cops in the story of the movie. Do you know what I mean? And so that it just left me feeling like numb and just kind of like, well, and my thing is I think Blumhouse next needs to get back, find some original horror filmmakers like Christopher Landon, who did Freaky and Happy Death Day, and just give them the ball. David Gordon Green has worn out his welcome on this one. I think he knows what he's trying to do. The screenplay is okay. There are bits and pieces where they're trying to. I do like the parts where they're trying to bring in new agey religions or different religions, as opposed to straight Catholic or straight Baptist or or straight just Judeo-Christian religions. I do like that, but it's a mixed bag. And it doesn't live up to the original in any way, shape, or form. Let's get some comments quickly. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Ken. Good to see you. Not a huge fan of the original for the sequels. I'm weird that way. Exorcist 3 is an underrated sequel. Heretic isn't great, but Exorcist 3 I can understand. But the original is kind of like, it's not my favorite horror movie of all time, but I understand why there are people that really love it. You know what I mean? Like I'm more of a fan of Rosemary's Baby and The Shining and American Werewolf in London. Those are my, The Thing, Halloween. Those are my big ones. Let's see what else. So, good afternoon. Were there a lot of jump scares in the new Exorcist? There's one or two, and the jump scare. It's really interesting. This is what I was thinking during the jump scares, Joe. I feel the jump scares are beneath the Exorcist franchise. I feel they occur and they happen, and I was watching them and I was like, oh, and the audience jumped, although again it wasn't that packed. Um, but I don't know that they're deserved. I also know that I feel they're beneath the franchise. So, unfortunately for folks, I have to say The Exorcist has not made me a believer. The power of the original compels me to just say, you can go see it. It's got Exorcist qualities to it. Um, yeah, Jamie, I know everybody can't wait to see it. I wish it lived up to the hype. I wish it lived up to $400 million that they paid for the rights, and I wish that the screenplay they came in with was a little bit sounder on all ends. There's some flimsy construction early that kind of lays groundwork for later in the movie. And again, I'm not giving any spoilers. Um, some of the spoilers I could give would make people very happy, but I'm not going to give any spoilers. But what I will say is, it doesn't live up to the hype. Now, with this weekend, we also get on October 6th Paramount's. So we did a whole thing with the Exorcist Believer. Unfortunately, it's a no. Also this weekend, and again is Pet Cemetery Bloodline dropping on Paramount Plus, which I watched today as well. And again, we're in the same goddamn boat. It's the same boat. Because this is basically it's a prequel. It's because it's called Bloodlines. It takes place in Ludlow, Maine, and it focuses on the Judd character. So it focuses on the Fred Gwynn character from the original. Sometimes Judd is better. That guy, right? Fred Gwynn, who played Herman Munster as well. And it focuses on the history of the town. It focuses on what made the ground sour. Although from the way it's basically to set up and kind of pad the story. Now, in the original book, this is a minor story that's kind of plays like one of the stories in like the book It, where you hear stories or things that happen in the town that give you an idea of what's going on in the town. Like it was there before everything else, and they had the murders and all different things. And it's kind of like a very small story in the book about one father whose son came back from Vietnam, and basically he uses the soil, and then there's a whole rigmarole about the history of the town, about certain families picked to preserve the I want to say chastity of the ground, picked to protect the town from people making terrible decisions. And so this is another one where it relies so much on the past. The two remakes, the first movie, of course, made in the 80s. That's again has a substantial following and has a very, very big love affair. And then the second thing that we just had a remake in 2019 it was well received, but isn't as beloved as the original. So this one is another failure of not. It's not a failure of the script. I like the idea of giving the idea that we're going to find out about the ground is sour, and it does have the first indigenous characters in the history of a Pet Cemetery movie in it. And it's an interesting side note because they have some sort of view into what's happening from their ancestry. So but it kind of just devolves into a weird zombie slash, crazy. I don't know if they're zombies because I don't know if they eat the flesh. I don't know if they're zombies, but basically it's something about the ground being sour, and then the ground causes people to go off the deep end, like Little Gage in the original. But these are much faster, much more dangerous, and I think they eat flesh, but they might not, and then they also kind of infect other people, so there's a zombie quality to it. And it's like something that's never actually been written or whatever, and there's no tension, there's no jump scares, the editing isn't very well done. It's by a director who's never done a horror film in her life. Um, Her name is Lindsay Anderson Beer. It's written by her and it's written by Jeff Bueller, and I just think it's one of those cash-in things. It has great cast members, and they all fall flat. David Duchovny plays the father of the soldier that comes home, perishing in Vietnam. It has Henry Thomas, who has made a name for himself recently in a bunch of Netflix shows, working with Mike Flanagan, who's one of the great horror directors of our time, and it just falls flat. It has some creepy moments, and then it's got some shocking. The kills aren't really that great. It has Pam Grier in it. For fuck's sake, we should be more excited about Pam Grier sighting, and I'm just not. And it's just not great. So hopefully this weekend, I'm at 17 minutes. I got to stop. One more comment. Ken writes, "Exorcist movies have been done to death." Yes, that's part of the problem. I did see The Pope's Exorcist for the first time this week, and I think I may have enjoyed that more, only because of the history before it gets to the crazy ending. And then Ken writes, "The First Omen next on the list." I don't know if we're going to remake The Omen again. The Omen had a remake that failed with Liev Schreiber. So I don't know if we're going to remake The Omen again. But Blumhouse is actively trying to acquire the rights to Friday the 13th. And I think they're a good company, but I think they need to do, like, some of the stuff works and some of the stuff doesn't. And they're talking about doing a trilogy of these Exorcist movies. And they're coming off of 2 Halloween movies that were kind of lackluster. So I don't know. There are so many good movies to watch though on horror. And just so if you're interested in paying attention to Generation Movie, and everybody, please, by all means, look at our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. The Indie Escape Network is where you can find all of Generation Movie stuff, including all my reviews and our show. We are in the process of doing some Hammer films for the spooky season. We just finished The Curse of Frankenstein. We also have an Indie Escape Network Facebook page where you can find all the cool Indie Escape stuff that we do. We're a functional network that really revolves around creatives and finding people that want to talk about movies and want to talk about their experience and want to get out and just talk to people and have a good time, and all within our passion and love for media. So by all means, check out both of those places to do that. You can also check us out in 2 weeks. A week from Monday, I should say. It's not 2 weeks, but a week from Monday, we will be doing, bam, The Horror of Dracula, which is the second in our giant Hammer horror films for spooky season. And who knows, maybe we'll get another review this weekend if I catch any other new horror films this weekend. I will also say, for folks who, and this is a shocker that I'm going to give to people right now, if you don't pay attention, you don't watch, I'm rewatching the Saw films because maybe I was mean to them for the wrong reasons. So anyway, thank you for joining me. I'm sorry it's a bummer. I'm sorry it's a bummer review. I really wanted to be excited about Exorcist Believer, but it just didn't fly. And I want to be excited about Pet Sematary Bloodlines, but it's middling at best. You can find better stuff out there. And we'll talk more. Have a great night. Have a great weekend, and we'll hope to see everybody a week from Monday for our episode of The Horror of Dracula on Generation Movie with my good friend and co-host Rich Trees. Have a great weekend. Take care. Go watch a horror movie. It's horror movie season. Get out of here. Go. Got to end the stream for you to